Coming up on Network Africa. Kenya's voting process under scrutiny, barely 24 hours to the elections. A large number of sub-Saharan migrants stormed the border crossing between Morocco and Spain. And a South Africa school teaches children and other youth the various disciplines of circus art. Thank you for joining us on the program. I'm Joke Rogers. We start today's show with major stories that made headlines over the weekend.
Mauritania held a contentious referendum on Saturday to alter the constitution amid widespread opposition claims that the vote is a ploy to increase presidential power. Tension has mounted in the lead-up to the referendum, which called for the abolition of the Senate and the merging of other key institutions, though the capital was calm on Saturday. The opposition, concerned that the vote will give President Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz too much power and pave the way for him to scrap presidential term limits, has boycotted the vote. Elsewhere, an explosives-laden car blew up in the center of Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, on Friday, killing at least one person and injuring another. The vehicle was parked next to a hospital in a busy road that is flanked by several hotels. There was no immediate claim of responsibility, though the Islamic militant group Al-Shabaab has launched frequent attacks in the city. Al-Shabaab is waging an insurgency to overthrow the Western-backed government and drive out African Union peacekeepers in a bid to take over the country and impose its strict interpretation of Islam. While in Rwanda, final results on Saturday shows incumbent leader Paul Kagame has sealed a crushing victory in the presidential election, securing a third term in office and extending his 17 years in power. Kagame has won international praise for presiding over a peaceful and rapid economic recovery in Rwanda since the 1994 genocide, when an estimated 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus were killed. But he has also faced mounting criticism for what human rights groups say are widespread abuses, a muzzling of independent media and suppression of political opposition. According to a final tally released by the National Electoral Commission on Saturday, the 59-year-old former guerrilla leader has secured 98.63% of Friday's vote.
Well, as Kenyans prepare to go to the polls in tomorrow's general election, the country's voting process is now under scrutiny. The streets of the capital, Nairobi, are calm today, the eve of the presidential election that many fear could descend into violence. Opposition leader Raila Odinga, who lost elections in 2007 and 2013, says President Uhuru Kenyatta can only win if his ruling Jubilee Party rigs the vote, a stance that increases the chances of a disputed result and possible unrest. Opinion polls before Tuesday's presidential election put the pair neck and neck.
And we have talked extensively to the IEBC about all the complementary measures. That is what we call the fallback options. In terms of, for example, satellite communications in more remote areas that don't have the coverage that maybe you may find in Nairobi. And there's, of course, also fallback options on paper. So we have definitely assessed the preparedness and the different steps that are the options available so that Kenyans can cast their votes. And of course, one of the things we'll be monitoring on election day with our teams across Kenya is the extent to which these procedures are working out in practice and how Kenyans can cast their votes, whether it is with all the proper functioning of the electronic systems that are foreseen or when there's a need to use the fallback options, how these are working in practice.
Meanwhile, the Kenyan Electoral Board says women make up only 16% of the 10,910 candidates competing in tomorrow's elections, and none of the presidential candidate is a woman. But women like Paris Tobiko is hopeful for a win in Tuesday's polls, especially when female candidates like herself face violence, intimidation and general sexism in the election race.
Kenyan Member of Parliament Paris Tobiko is on the last stretch of a campaign to retain her seat as voters go to the polls tomorrow. Running under the ruling Jubilee Party in Kajiado East, Tobiko is one of few female MPs in the National Assembly dominated by men. Her win in 2013 made her the first Maasai woman MP in history. She fought a tough race against her opponents that included threats and curses from Maasai elders that say it was against tradition for women to take up leadership positions. This time, Tobiko is campaigning on a proven track record. She has been lauded for introducing a number of developmental projects, including drilling boreholes to provide water for residents of the semi-arid area, as well as empowering women and the youth. The 42-year-old mother of 4 grew up in a community where educating girls is not always a priority, and parents marry off their daughters at a young age. She says her own experience gave her the resolve to become a lawmaker.
In my father's third attempt to marry me off, I was going to be a 4th wife. To a man who is my constituent today, and he has 3 wives, I was going to be the 4th wife. So it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy. I mean, women don't have a say. And I thought I could become a voice and encourage others to come out and speak and encourage them to really make their free choices and also be able to give direction to society. We don't always have to be given direction. We can also provide very sound decisions.
Hopes for better female representation were raised in 2010 when the Constitution guaranteed women 1/3 of seats in all political offices, but the male-dominated assembly has repeatedly frustrated efforts to pass a law to enact the quota. Activists are hopeful that following Tuesday's election, there will be more support in Parliament to pass the law.
When you now look at who is offering themselves for elections now, you will see most of the women who went in the women affirmative seats are actually offering themselves for election. Because once they get there, they get empowered. They get to realize they can actually run for constituency seats. This is what we are saying, that given an opportunity to be in the leadership, whether through nomination or the top-up mechanism, these women will eventually grow bolder and stronger to now be able to go and say, I want to be a leader. And this we have seen in the last 5 years. We've got a lot of women who have migrated from the women seat, the county woman seat, into constituencies.
Kenyan Electoral Board says women make up only 16% of the 10,910 candidates competing in tomorrow's elections, and none of the presidential candidate is a woman.